can get off the civil service website for you if you'd like.
Okay, no, I was just wondering what it was.
Yeah, it's just civil service has very terms that are not very current. So we have positions called keyboarding clerks, which no one really does that anymore. But these are just civil service terms that we have to utilize for our staff.
Okay, all right, thank you. Also, under the the township administrator, I believe the salary quoted for this year will be $160,000. Is that correct?
That's the current salary, yes.
That's the current salary for this year.
Yes.
So the high end of that is $170,000, correct?
That would be correct.
So you would, if the raise was anticipated, she would be making $170,000 next year too. Is that correct? No?
Well, I will clarify for you, Carol. If
Thank
you look
you.
at the earlier part of the agenda, there was a resolution adopted setting salaries for certain non-aligned employees. I realize those specific resolutions have a lot of legalese in the way they're written, but that resolution sets the specific salary. As the mayor just referenced, that salary was set tonight at $160,000 in an action that was taken as part of the consent agenda. And by the exact terms of the salary ordinance, the governing body by resolution shall set each salary as they did earlier tonight.
For the non-union.
Correct, and that's for certain employees, as the administrator just highlighted, those are the ones who were not in the union, so there's no contract controlling their salary.
Now also, I believe there's something here about a PR person as well. Can you help me out on that one? Is that for COA, or what is that for?
What are you talking about the salary ordinance itself, Carol?
I'm sorry, say again?
Are you talking about the salary ordinance itself?
I believe so.
Tell me what you're looking at.
Well, I lost my page, so I'm going to have a hard time with that. I think there was something in there. It might have been the resolutions. I'm sorry. It might have been
So the salary ordinance is a range, and that's by title.
Okay.
So what that means is that there is a range for that position should the committee choose to fill it as part of the budget process. So it allows us to pay that employee within that range of his salary.
Okay. All right. I think I was referring to the resolution, so that has nothing to do with the ordinance. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. I think that's about it.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Jenny?
Jenny Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. Union settlements. What are the basic changes in these voluminous documents? There was 100 pages of this stuff. My gosh.
Well, that's actually not related to the salary ordinance, so I don't know if you want to comment on that in the public hearing or if you want to defer that later on.
Well, all right. I'm talking about the union. All the union things.
The ordinance doesn't address anyone that's in the union except for one, which I don't think you're referencing, which is there's one specific union that's in the salary ordinance, but all the others were just adopted by resolution earlier tonight.
Well, I guess the bottom line in all this business, what is the overall cost to the taxpayers from these 4 union agreements?
So these agreements were ratified last year, and last year there was a 0% tax increase to the town.
As a result of those 4
As a result of good, fast fiscal management.
Anyone else in the public? Seeing close the public portion. Roll call, please.
Motion to adopt the final reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press according to law.
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Bontempo?
So I have a concern going over the 2% as a no justification to go above what we provided.
Could you speak up, please?
Is the microphone on?
Yeah, the microphone would be good.
So I have a concern when any increase of the ban goes above the 2%, which we approve, so I am no.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholas?
Yes.
Dr. Pascucci?
Yes.
Mayor Catali?
Yes. Okay, departments. Anything from administration tonight?
No name.
Jeanette? CFO?
No,
Nothing tonight?
nothing tonight.
Michael?
Some good news from the attorney, which is a rarity. Do want to report to the public that last week, the township and our sister townships prevailed before the Office of Administrative Law in the Jersey Central Power and Light litigation. That involves the high-tension power lines that JCPL wanted to route down the North Jersey coastline. The administrative law judge issued her opinion. It was very lengthy, well over 100 pages. She really took JCPL to task on a lot of their experts. Really was pretty hard on them from my reading of the opinion. I don't want to say everything's final because that decision now proceeds to the Board of Public Utilities, which has the right to accept, reject, or modify that decision. But it's always nice to get a win, Mayor, and that was definitely a win for the township. So I know the township's been fighting that, and the committee, and I know that you'll continue to be represented by the Joint Municipal Group, which is representing Homedale and the sister townships against JCPL before the BPU.
I just want to a shout out to Kim G, who is the head of the Rage Group. He did a hell of a job. I also want to recognize former mayors Bentempo and Hines, who were very instrumental when that first came out of the gate. And,
So that was my good news.
engineering. Fran, why don't we handle the preliminary assessment first?
Yes, Mayor. Bonnie Hurd is here with us to address that for you.
I'll come up to the regular microphone here. Last year, we had gotten a grant from we submitted a grant for the Monmouth County Open Space Program for improvements to Phillips Park. That work was awarded when we got the grant. And one of the requirements before we can sign the grant agreement is we have to provide a preliminary assessment, which is basically an environmental evaluation of all of the Phillips Park and the adjacent Veterans Park property. So that we had submitted a proposal, the amount to do that preliminary assessment in accordance with the Green Acres and the Monmouth County requirements is not to exceed $2,000. So we're requesting authorization.
Very good. Need a motion.
You could.
Move it. Motion to accept.
Second.
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholas?
Yes.
Dr. Pastucci?
Yes.
Mayor Cotelli?
Yes. Now for the long-anticipated recreation report. Mr. Mull.
Good evening, Mayor.
Standing room only, by the way, tonight.
Yes, we have for you tonight a presentation of the town-wide recreation needs assessment that we were asked to lead and coordinate the effort on. With me is Donna Miller, our professional planner, who's with us at T&M, who is our project manager. You'll recall we started this process in earnest back in mid-June. Donna will take us through a brief overview of the steps we took, the process, explain the methodology. With us tonight in a teleconference here is Ryan Murray, who is the representative for ETC, who's a consultant that worked with us to put together the townwide survey. They helped us in that process. They also helped us gather that data and evaluate it. That's all contained in our report of findings and recommendations. We have basically tried to evaluate the residents' wants and needs as they relate to the existing inventory of park and recreation offerings and programs and facilities, and gather townwide input on not only the existing conditions, but what their preferences are, what their concerns are, and how that relates to potential enhancements, upgrades, or creation of new park assets or facilities. What I want to also remind you that there were a number of groups and folks that helped in the process. One of the key components was a volunteer group, as the ad hoc committee had a series of meetings, provided input, and were part of the process. One thing I will remind you is that this culminated in a report of findings and an outline of recommendations. However, the caveat is that the recommendations contained in our report are to be always considered a strategic planning guide. It is not a design manual. It is not an all or nothing proposition. We were asked to contemplate or suggest some enhancements or improvements over somewhat of a 10-year capital improvement time span, and put together some thoughts and recommendations on what could be contemplated by the township leadership on an annual basis for funding consideration. This report does not present to you an outline of recommended improvements that must be done all at once, as one package, as one program. It is simply an outline for you to consider on a year-to-year basis for budgeting purposes. You can easily accelerate it. You can push things out in time. You can eliminate items, or you can bundle them together if it suits your interest in any time frame. So with that, that's just kind of an overview of what the effort has been. Tonight we're to present maybe 15 to 20 minutes of the methodology, some of the findings and our recommendations. I think Donna will need somewhere around 3 to 5 minutes to give you an overview of our collective efforts in summary, and then we'll have Ryan talk you through a little bit more of the detail when it comes to the survey, how it was shaped up, and what the results indicate.
Thank you.
Let me also point out, Mayor, there are handouts, not only for yourselves up on the dais, but also the folks in the audience. We did what we could to make color copies of the slide presentations. ETC is located, I believe, in Kansas, and they are having weather or technical difficulties. Otherwise, we would have it up on the screens for us, but that's not cooperating at the moment. But you do have hard copies of everything that Ryan will refer to and everything that Donna will explain. And I just want to do a check. Ryan, can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. We'll call upon you when we get to that point in the presentation. Please stand by.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay. So as Fran has introduced, we've been working on this recreation needs assessment for several months. The project was initially started. Was initially started with Evan Stone from our office. Study. There we go. Evan Stone from our office. He did lead the project midway through, and so I've been charged with carrying the ball the rest of the way, so to speak.
Is it on?
Is this better?
Shake it.
You use that one too, Don. I can hear me. You guys hear me? No? You have to keep it very close to your mouth. Okay.
There you go. Very close.
Okay. So should I start from the beginning?
No, just go.
Yes.
So as I was saying, we initially started this project back in June of last year. Evan Stone from TNM was our project manager and leader. He left the firm in October, November of last year. And so I was given responsibility for finishing out and bringing it to fruition. So Some of you from the audience I see are from the ad hoc committee. The governing body saw fit to charge 10 people to help shepherd the process, help develop the survey questions that were instrumental in the assessment. We also consulted with other recreation advocacy groups, HYAA, the Recreation Advisory Committee, which is a standing committee of the township, the Board of Education, and other concerned individuals who represent either arts or other recreation and leisure activities or needs, so that we could further refine and understand what, further refine and understand some of the intent of the survey results. So, I think that's a good place to bring in Ryan. A lot of the focus of this project has been the survey. Ryan Murray with ETC remotely is going to run through some slides up on the TV screens.
Okay, so Ryan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Does everybody hear me okay?
Yes, it seems like you're okay with audio. Is your slide presentation is up on the screen now? Can you at least hit the first slide? Let's make sure it's responding for us on this end. Okay, it's working. We're going to turn it over to you, if you would, as Don indicated. Explain to us, talk us through your slideshow, explain the survey questionnaire and the findings and your interpretation of some of the data.
Great, thanks, Fran. As they've already mentioned, I'm Ryan Murray with the ETC Institute. We are one of the national leaders in market research for local government organizations across the country. We've surveyed over 2.15 million people since 2006 and about the last 12 years. In 49 states, and we've actually branched out to some other countries here recently. I think Ethiopia and India are a couple markets we're emerging in. So we're really well versed in all sorts of different parks and recreation opportunities and research. We really pride ourselves in how well we know parks and recreation districts all over the country. So tonight, like Fran and Don had already said, we're going to discuss some of the methodology of our survey and some of the major findings, and I'll be open for any questions at the time that those are presented. The purpose of these surveys is to objectively assess the need for parks and recreation programs. The way that we do this is using a random sample. And I'll kind of get into that in the next slide here. But basically, this tool is used to help determine priorities for improvements. Not that those are immediate priorities, but these are the priorities based on responses from a representative sample of the community. These surveys are also used to evaluate the support for various programs or services or facilities, and any improvements that may be considered in those. The survey contains a series of questions used to assess a wide range of issues, particularly needs assessments based on the type of project that T&M is running. We mailed the survey to every household in the community. Residents were able to go online, complete that survey, and phone follow-ups were made to households in the community where we saw the need. We had a goal of 400. The sample size of 1184 kind of blows that out of the water. It's almost 3 times the number that we expected. So that kind of just shows how into parks and recreation the community really is. Some of the results that I'll present next really prove that. We do have a margin of error of 2.85%, so almost 3%. But these results are very much statistically significant and very representative of the community, as we'll see. Donna and Fran with T&M put this map together. Basically, it's just showing the number of responses from each of the brush zones. We had a great response rate from each of the brush zones, with 37% from brush zone A, which really, anything over 20% is almost unheard of when we do these types of surveys. Having a response rate of 37% really just shows how much people care about parks and recreation in Moselle, which is a great sign. We did ask respondent age, and just to make sure that we are, pulling data from a representative sample of respondents. We have an equal distribution among all the age groups here. You know, if we compare these to the census data, which I will in a second, we'll see just how representative they are. We also asked respondents to indicate how many people in their households are of the following age groups. And I know this chart here is kind of difficult to read, but when we compare this data to the U.S. Census, which does have a margin of error itself, we see that we're just right in line in every age group of the U.S. Census. This is sourced from the U.S. Census Bureau website, and as you can see, the difference, you know, the largest difference is ages 55 to 64, where we saw a 3% difference. You know, the margin of error on that, I believe, is 2.9 if you go to that website. Again, good representation by gender, and I found this very helpful. It is a good representation of how long people have lived in Homedale. So we're getting a good representative of those people who lived there 15 years and longer, but as we can see here, you know, almost 45% of people who responded to the survey have lived there 10 or less years, which is good. Just kind of a general summary of the findings. You know, this makes my job really easy when most respondents are have very high expectation of the park district, but also it seems like the park district is also meeting those expectations. So the township has done an excellent job of aligning community priorities with the output of their product. Nearly 95% of residents have visited the township park facility for recreation purposes within the last 12 months, which means that, you know, 95 of 100 people are going every day. We call it 5,000 households, you know, 95% of those households are visiting at least one park within the last 12 months. The top in preventing park usage or facility usage or program usage is that people are just somewhat unsure about what is being offered and where. And we'll kind of get into that here in a little bit. The number one way residents learn about township information and news is through word of mouth. However, respondents do indicate that they would prefer to receive some kind of email notification or even going to the township website to receive that information rather than receiving it from word of mouth. When we ran at facilities and activities importance rating, we determined that walking and hiking trails, indoor recreation center, and mountain biking trails were the most important facilities. And for activities, adult fitness and wellness programs, summer concert series, adult continuing education programs, and active adult programs 50 and up are really the most important activities for priority improvements moving forward. First topic here is just general perceptions of the township and the Parks and Recreation Department. 71% respondents indicated they are satisfied or very satisfied with the overall value they received from the Homedale Township Parks and Recreation Department. This is 3% above the national average of 68%. So everybody there should be very proud of themselves for delivering excellent services to residents who really expect the best. 91% of residents indicated that their overall opinion of the park is either excellent or good, which is really just unheard of. You know, if we were to put it into more layman's terms, we could say for every one person that says they're unhappy with Homedale Township Park, there are 9 others lined up right behind them that's ready to tell you just how good the parks are. Again, nearly nine residents are happy for every one unhappy resident. So when we ask residents to rate the overall management, maintenance, and general upkeep of the facility, you know, again, just about one person, for every one person that's dissatisfied, we have 9 other people on the opposite side of that equation. The township asked, I think, 4 questions basically regarding adequate either active or passive recreation facilities. Overall, the data suggests that respondents are fairly satisfied with the number of active and the number of passive open space areas and facilities. That being said, you know, it's just kind of the same tune that I've been humming this whole time, is that respondents in Homedale are very satisfied with what they've been receiving from Homedale Park Township. Next topic here is usage of township parking facilities. As I mentioned earlier, respondents are actually actively using facilities and parks for recreation purposes. The facilities that are offered by Township Park are definitely being used. And what we see here is that although the Homedale Park and Thompson Park, which are county facilities, are the most used, Cross Farm Park is used by nearly half of the respondents who responded to the survey. Homedale High School also had a high number of respondents indicate that they used that facility, and Bayonet Park was also up there with about a third of respondents indicating that they've used it during the past year. The primary reason respondents use facilities that they frequent the most is walking and hiking and exercise. Relaxation and meditation came in and third, but really people are getting out there and walking and hiking, and exercise really seems to be important to the community when they were asked to indicate what activities they participate in most. Recreation facility elements that are most important to households, of course, with the same theme that we have here, paths and trails are most important. Nearly 3 out of every 4 respondents indicated they use facilities primarily for walking and hiking. So that's really going to be something that the township should look into moving forward. And like I mentioned earlier, one of the things that kind of stuck out to me is that respondents just are a little unsure about what's being offered and where. And that's something that a communication campaign or a communication plan could really work out or iron out in the future. And that's a really easy fix. Like I said, respondents are typically receiving their information from word of mouth. However, I've highlighted email and township website here because those are really the most preferred methods for learning about the township information and news. And that's just something, a little bit of insight that's easy to glean from the data here. And something really easy to fix. Next, what we did is we ran a priority investment rating. And this is something the ETC Institute has developed for ourselves. It takes a few steps to get there. Basically, we ask respondents to indicate, do they have a desire for a particular facility or a particular program? Here we saw walking and hiking trails, nature trails, mountain biking trails, and again, we're developing a theme here. Residents love to walk, but specifically, they love to use the township trails, and that's really important because when we look here, we find that 54% of residents indicated that walking and hiking trails is one of the most important facilities to their household, followed by nature trails and again, biking and mountain biking trails. And this is our priority investment rating. We call it a PIR. The PIR provides community leaders with an objective tool for evaluating the priority that should be placed on parks and recreation investments. And we do that by identifying facilities and programs residents think should have the highest priority moving forward. In this list, we'll see that walking and hiking trails came in at the very top, followed by an indoor recreation center and biking and mountain biking trails. This is a strategic planning tool that leaders should use moving forward. But like Fran mentioned earlier, it's nothing that's telling anybody that they need to go out and spend money on these priorities. If the township has a very good or substantial path system or trail system, then this is just telling the township that more emphasis should be placed on that because residents in the area are more frequently using that, and it's very important to their household. We also did the same rating for activities. There was a lot less overall need or use or desire to use programs for activities. But again, adult fitness and wellness programs, almost all half of respondents indicate that or desire to use that. Summer concert series came in second, and adult continuing education programs came in third, which was the running theme for programs here. We see again, adult fitness wellness programs is most important to households, followed by the summer concert series and adult continuing education programs. Both of these top the list again when we look at our priority investment rate. We run the same exact analysis using the same methodology as we did for the facilities. We found that adult fitness and wellness programs, the summer concert series, adult continuing education programs, and active adult programs, those 50 and up, are the highest priorities in the community. And this again is just a strategic planning tool. We basically get an idea of how many people in the community have a need or a desire to use these types of programs, and we weigh that against the importance of these programs or facilities to the household as well, and we come up with this rating. The last topic here that we'll talk about is just support for additional improvements or development or expansion. Overall, 66% of respondents seem to be pleased or satisfied with what the township has offered for them. We see here almost half, 48%, indicated they do not believe the township should consider improving, developing, or expanding active recreation facilities. Basically, what this is telling us is that respondents are very happy in the area and in the township with what they're currently receiving. They're not necessarily looking for the township to go out and develop more, but maybe to concentrate efforts on what they currently have. The same could be said for the development of expensive passive recreation facilities. Again, 75% of respondents were pleased with their current passive recreation offerings, and nearly half, 49%, believe the township should not consider improving, developing, or expanding passive recreation facilities. Again, this is not something to say that the township should not consider any kind of redevelopment, but they're not in the exact tone of entertaining the idea of the township actively promoting anything like that. When we kind of summarize the data again, the easy part about this is that township residents are very satisfied. What's even better is that we received nearly 1,200 surveys, which is a very representative sample of the population in Holmdel. So based on these results, we can very realistically say that most households do have a favorable opinion of the Holmdel Township parks. We can again say the top reason preventing the use of those parks, facilities, and programs is that residents are just kind of unsure about what's being offered. Again, focusing more on email notifications or the website and the notifications that provides could help with some of that. And walking and hiking trails are definitely the top priority for investment, as the township is going to invest in facilities and for activities, adult fitness and wellness programs, special events such as concert series, and adult continuing education programs top the list for activities. Most respondents either have no opinion or aren't in full support of the development, expansion, or improvement of active or passive recreation facilities. But that's not to say that they aren't satisfied with what they currently have. I think that's something that the township has done a really excellent job of doing. So, I guess I'll hold my questions for after Fran and Donna are finished up here.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. We appreciate that. We have just a few minutes of similar information from Donna, our project manager, and then we will summarize our presentation, Mayor, if we could, and then field any questions that you have.
Thank you.
So Ryan, I appreciate the input. If you would, please stand by.
Will do.
Okay. Sorry about that. So to carry forward from the survey results, we also did an inventory of the existing township facilities. We went to every park, looked at GIS maps, aerial photographs, and analyzed the township's ROSI to actually assess all of the facilities. And that includes the facilities used by township residents, run by the Board of Ed, particularly as those were identified in the survey as receiving high usage by township residents. Again, overall residents expressed a generally favorable opinion of the park system. But we've discovered through this process that there's a consensus that many fields, surfaces, equipment, certain specific locations would benefit from enhanced maintenance and repairs. Some facilities exceed the expectations for quality, while others do not exhibit the level of quality expected by township residents.
Now speak a little louder, please.
Okay, sorry. We held 2 public open houses to gather more specific input from residents. And this is a map of all the parks that we have evaluated and sought input on. So one of the other things we did was we looked at the census data to try and get a handle on, again, what our need going forward is in town. Are we looking at growth that would trigger the need for new facilities? And so our population evaluation shows that population actually slowed in Homedale since 2000, following the pretty significant building boom that occurred between 90 and 2000. But since then, things have slowed down. Average household size is decreasing, median age is increasing, and population is pretty much holding steady right now. So I think it's fair to say that demand currently is very likely to be demand in the near future. There's been some concerns about whether youth sports is adequately or substantially represented. And so we have this handy little evaluation that shows the respondents to the survey with the brush zone map in various parts of town, that the brush zone that has the highest percentage of population and the highest percentage of households with school-aged children did have the lowest survey response rate. So you can take that for an indication that everybody's just too busy, or you can take that as they have more interest in other areas than completing surveys. So we compared Homedale to the national standards. And the organization that is best known for developing, publishing, and educating not just people, but governments and parks and recreation authorities is the NRPA. And they publish every year what they call metrics. And so we've looked at how Homedale compares according to those metrics. The national averages for parkland are 9.6 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents, or 1 park per 2,666 residents. Homedale provides 1,000 residents with 51.27 acres of parkland by comparison, and slightly under 2 parks per 2,666 residents. So in that little snapshot, Homedale is far and above what the national average is in meeting the national average for parks and recreation facilities. What you can't see as well in that graphic is a chart that illustrates the ratios of what agencies provide in various forms: playgrounds, basketball courts, tennis courts, and the like. Most communities, more than 70% of communities in the nation, do provide those types of facilities. And again, basically those ratios are in the order of thousands of residents per facility. And we are, again, the number of basketball courts, tennis courts, and various other recreation facilities are exceeding the national average. So what do we want? So we had these 2 public open houses to try and gauge a little better what the specific interest is. And this slide represents some of the comments and ideas that residents at those open houses provided us. This is a Crosswalk Park. It was the location that people were most focused on. We did get input on other park locations like Alaco and the Swim and Tennis Center. But Cross Farm is the magnet here. This is where everybody has their attention. And again, these comments reflect pretty closely what is in the survey results. There are some more specific recommendations. People who are in support of increasing trails or are satisfied with trails also feel that, you know, we could improve trails. We can improve trail connections between the parks. We should improve access to the trails in the parks. And those are necessary aspects of maintaining that network. So we have put together some ideas for improving the trail system to improve accessibility. Shade was another thing that was highly advocated for. Wayfinding signs, distance markers, fitness stations. And again, improving how you get from one to the other or even into. This is over on the side of the Reminiscent Greenway. There's a curb, there's a missing curb, there's quite pitiful access here. And many people have remarked to us that even getting to this point could be pretty hazardous. So that is one of the types of focuses that we were looking for at these open houses. This also helped us come up with some ideas about potential park enhancements. So improvement of fields, refurbishment of courts. There's even been the idea of an indoor rec center, which has been suggested many times in the past. And again, is coming up in our survey results as a desired recreation facility by at least a high percentage of our respondents in the survey. So we have other examples to show the committee if they're interested, but that pretty much concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Donna.
So Mayor, in summary, I would suggest that in the plan itself, this is a copy of the plan. It has a number of maps, exhibits, simply for a graphical demonstration of space planning, magnitude of size, location, proximity to other features, all as a suggested outline for contemplation pretty much on an annual basis. Each year as the town goes forward, it's a strategic planning tool. It is not a package that has to be one decision, all or nothing. It's simply going to be an outline of facilities and improvements or enhancements that you could consider one year after the next. On pages 38 through 41, there's a table of years 1 through 10 with an outline of ballpark cost estimates for budgeting purposes only. Just so anyone that is part of the decision-making going forward has some sense of the cost of some of the outlined items. And we pretty much shaped it up so that you can look at it 1 year after the next. Year 1, for example, has 7 potential improvements, mostly seasonal enhancement, best practices to develop a program, and then have seasonal enhancements and best practices to implement that program. That's all in year 1. And that would be throughout all the parks, all the trails, and the swim center, so that you will continue to contemplate investing in the maintenance, needed repairs due to the winter season, and then enhancements and interconnectivity. Year 1 also includes improvements to trails either upgrading the trail itself, constructing interconnection within parks, or connecting one park to the next. And that would involve many of the parks. And then there's other outlined suggested items. Year one, for example, is somewhere in the range of $1.3 million to $1.4 million as a ballpark budget estimate for consideration. If you did everything that's outlined, that's a reasonable budget. If you did some of it, naturally it would be less. This is all structured so that anyone that looks at this can move things up on the calendar into shorter term considerations, or they can push it out longer into years, 5 through 10. They can simply omit items or add new items that may come into consideration as time goes on.
Thank you very much, Fran. I would just open it up to questions of T&M Associates to the committee.
Can I make just a quick statement and then just one question? A lot of stuff. It's one of the things I'm going to use to make my decision, and I'm sure we all are, in how we're going to go forward with recreation. But I don't use just this or just the survey. It's phone calls, texts, emails, talking to people in my office, talking to people outside. So this is just one part, but I can't make really any comment yet because I'm a reader. I have to read this. I cannot digest it from the survey. So I apologize to the public if they think I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. I can't. I have to read this, and I got it today about 5 o'clock because I'm working.
What are we going to see?
When are we going to
see? We pay for this. We want to see it.
But you're going to get to, but I have
When are
another
we going to see
question.
it?
But
No reason
please.
to
grandstand. We spent $40,000. Why are we seeing what's in there?
I'm glad he did. Now we'll know what to do.
Can I have my one question
Yeah.
now? I cannot question T&M yet because I have to read this. But I do have a question on the survey. I'm a little confused. From what I saw of the survey and not the other stuff, how did the I don't know the gentleman's name.
Ryan.
Ryan?
Ryan, can you hear
Hey,
the
Ryan,
question?
can you hear me? How did you deduce from the survey? Can you hear me, Ryan?
Yes.
How did you deduce from the survey, and I'm not taking sides either way because I have a lot to think about, how did you deduce from the survey, I don't see it, that we need a rec center?
Can we list what we need?
Jay, you're out of order. You'll have a chance to speak. Thank you.
I didn't hear what he said.
I didn't hear what you said.
Ryan, so you got the question. If we can refer to any of the questions, every question is numbered. I don't know if that helps us. I don't know if it's question 13 or in your investment recreation facilities on your tile number 7. Top priorities for investment for recreation facilities. Indoor rec center is a high priority. So just explain some of the rationale and how the question was in the survey and how you interpret the results. That's the
So the
question.
PIR, yeah. Are you guys ready for me?
Yes.
Yes.
So when we asked if respondents had a desire for all of the recreation facilities, I believe there were 30 some on the survey. The most unmet need based on that question, indicating respondents had a need, but the need was currently being unmet. That was the highest rate. So indoor recreation center, most respondents who